Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Buccateers podcast. I'm your host, Tampa Tones, bringing you an up-to-the-minute Buck date. This is episode 77 of the Buccateers. We got a short but loaded show, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we're going to bring you the latest and greatest update on our podcast. We're going to bring you my adventures and update you on what I'll be doing during the Colts Bucs preseason week 3 game or week 4, depending if you count the Hall of Fame game as a week or not. We're going to update you on Buccaneers injuries. What happened in a wild day of training camp with Miami on Wednesday. And then we're going to get into some fights that may have broke out, roster battles, Bucs Dolphins preview, and so much more. You're listening to the Buccateers podcast. We'll be back in a flash on the Bucs Life Media Network, Bucs Life News, and on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Google, and so much more, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Buccateers. Game on Sunday, man. I know you're nervous for the Rams, but you got to be a little enthusiastic after being there.
Bro, that game atmosphere was ridiculous. The energy, the electricity. That place was rocking. Anyone was there, and a lot of the Super Buck fans were there too. The Buck.
Tampa Tones. We are joined by Lead Goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron Show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is bumbling a little bit. Going to put him on mute for a second until that gets a little cleared. But we're joined by Pat
It looks like
Donovan.
Stunna's hanging out with Cheech and Chong in a car with the windows up or something over there.
It does look like we got a little...
No, my camera's broke.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned into the Buccateers. Once again, you can find us on YouTube at Buccateers Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at Buccateers Pod. You can follow us on Twitter at Buccateers, and you can follow us on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and so much more at Buccateers Podcast. I'm your host, Tampa Tones, and you're up to the minute Buck Date. No guests or no co-hosts in these shows, just a brief, short, crisp but sweet glimpse at the offseason. Ladies and gentlemen, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers started practice with the Miami Dolphins today, leading up to Saturday's Week 1 preseason battle with them. So we'll get into that and so much more here in a little bit. But nonetheless, we do want to remind you that last week we added a new co-host. That's right, a new co-host last week. He's a training camp guy. He's been to damn near every camp, if not all of them. He'll be going to a lot of games, and he's just a friend of the shows. So he officially joined us as well. And his name is Huncho. You guys know him as Huncho, and he's joining us moving forward. So once again, the Buccateers family has expanded. It's no longer just Tampa Tones, Bucko the Bruce, Cody the G, Cats, and Stunna. It's now Huncho as well. So we look forward to his coverage not only during the offseason and training camp, but throughout the season and throughout the offseason next year and so much more as well. We have a lot to get into, but first I do want to start by saying I officially bought my tickets for my first Bucs game of the season. I have the hope to go to 5. Once again, my mapped out hope is Bucs Colts preseason. That's in the bag, is hotel and tickets bought. Just bought my tickets. I'll be sitting row 1 in the Bucs end zone, baby. Let's go. I'll be looking to get there early. Hopefully talk to Kalen Geiger and some other buddies and some good guys from the team, just to have good conversation. But nonetheless, Bucs Colts preseason. Then hoping to be going to Bucs Falcons regular season in October. Then I am hoping to go in late November to Cleveland to Bucs Browns on a road trip. So that would be my 3rd game. Then first week of December, home against the Saints on Monday Night Football would be the 4th. Then I would plan on flying to Tampa week 18 and traveling with the co-host Stunna and my good buddy from home. We drive up to Atlanta for Bucs Falcons in week 18. So that would be my 5-game extravaganza. I'm already 1/5 of the way there in terms of purchases. It's everything for the Colts Bucs trip has been purchased. Olivia and I will be heading up there 2 weeks from Friday. So we're really excited about that. We can't wait to see the Bucs play, and we can't wait to be in Indianapolis, as it is a great town. So looking forward to that very much so. As we know, the Bucs started joint practices. We mentioned that this time with Miami. Next week we do have some with Tennessee leading up to our road game against the Titans. We practiced with the Titans last year as well. Things got a little chippy, if you remember, with Antonio Brown. Nonetheless, things got a little chippy this year as well. Leonard Fournette was in a little scuffle today. He is the running back on the Buccaneers, of course. A lot of people were talking about Lenny this offseason because of his weight, but his weight was never really an issue. Many people blew that out of proportion to begin with. Today, he was in the news for tussling a little bit in practice. So that was interesting to see. But Leonard Fournette got into a little tussle with the Miami Dolphins at practice. And it wasn't anything crazy. Fournette did throw a punch. He threw a punch and it landed on the face mask of the Dolphins defenders. So nothing too crazy, but it was an interesting development. It was Wilkins, by the way. For those of you that don't know, it was Wilkins and Fournette that got into the original little tussle. So Fournette, according to Omar Kelly, it says full-time NFL columnist for the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Fournette just punched Christian Wilkins in the face mask after 11-on-11 stop at line of scrimmage. Wilkins probably said something slick. Yeah, so we'll see if that develops into anything over the coming days. Obviously, probably not in the game, as that won't be happening. Not a lot of starters in the game, but yeah, that's the type of thing that happens in these with other teams, especially, you know. So I like that. Good fight for Leonard F. Good fight for Lenny F. We know that, you know, these fights are something that'll happen when everyone's in the midst of fighting, in the midst of practicing in the heat. We know a lot of things could happen. So he wasn't only the only one, but Tyler Johnson on top of Leonard Fournette, Lenny F. It's a Dolphin safety. Brandon Jones gave Scotty Miller a cheap shot after the whistle. Tyler Johnson comes to the defense of his teammate. 2 days later, Jones put a hit on Johnson that earned some ass chewing from Tom Brady. Tyler Johnson apparently did a fake punch towards him or whatever. So there was a lot of fieriness going on today. That was according to multiple reports, but something to keep your eyes on over the coming days with the Dolphins and Bucs is these tussles after Leonard Fournette and Tyler Johnson came out swinging literally today in the training camp against the Miami Dolphins. Not only were we fighting, but we lost a couple soldiers due to injury today. Robert Hainsey went down and gave everyone, including myself, a big old heart attack, especially after Jensen went down. It would always suck to lose Hainsey, as he's a versatile lineman and brings a lot of depth to the team. But if Jensen doesn't go down, it doesn't hurt as much. With Jensen down already and Hainsey competing and likely to win the starting center position after many, many reports him having a favorable camp, besides Twitter simps that don't understand the game of football. Hainsey went down today at the end of practice, had to be carted off. Lenny F. was asked about it by Carmen Vitale from the Draft Network, formerly a Bucs writer, but she asked him, hey, what's Hainsey's status? Lenny F. said, I wouldn't be too worried, and shortly after that came out, it was just cramps for Hainsey. So that's good for the Bucs that it was just indeed cramps for Hainsey, and he was or he'll be back tomorrow. Odds are Hainsey will be back in there tomorrow, starting center, snapping well. A little bit more concerning one. Russell Gage limped off the field. He's having his leg checked out. Jenna Lane, Buccaneers ESPN reporter, reports that there is no update quite yet on Russell Gage. So as soon as we hear something, Todd Bowles also said on the Ronnie and T Crash show today, there was no update on Russell Gage either as of now. So something to monitor, something to watch for sure. And that's already a couple wide receiver injuries this camp. We've seen Brashad Perriman go down. Mike Evans is banged up, hasn't returned to practice or camp yet. Now Russell Gage goes down, and this is exactly why the Bucs brought in Julio Jones. If the season starts tomorrow, we're not counting cuts here. We're going to pretend like the whole, I know it's unrealistic, but we're going to pretend like the whole depth chart carries over because Perriman has a chance at getting cut because he is hurt and isn't able to prove himself in front of the coaches. But if we had Perriman, Evans, Gage, all and Godwin all unable to suit up week one, you'd be looking at a Julio Jones, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson type receiving core with Jayler Darden, perhaps a Stearns or Tompkins or our guy Kalen Geiger in the mix. So just interesting bunch there. Cyril Grayson in the mix, obviously, too. Vincent Smith in there as well. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. Roster battles, speaking of the crowded wide receiver room, we'll get into roster battles, and the wide receiver room is obviously a roster battle going on. So I don't know who you guys like to make the team at wide receiver. There's a lot of competition going on. A lot of people in the room, a lot of bodies. We just named some of them as well. So we'll see what happens, but I'm obviously predicting a lot of competition in the coming weeks. I wouldn't take too much into the Buccaneers original depth chart they just released. I mean, it is a depth chart, sure, go off it based on some things, but don't go off it like it's set in concrete. There's a lot to go about, like you see it. Vincent Smith, Devin Tompkins listed on there, Cameron Brown, Kalen Geiger, Jarrett Stearns, Jalen Darden, Scotty Miller, Cyril Grayson, Brashad Perriman, Tyler Johnson, Julio Jones, Gage Evans, Chris Godwin. This is crazy. Evans is a lot, Godwin is a lot, Gage is a lot. Then you look at Julio, he's obviously a lot. So that leaves you probably two spots for the likes of a Tyler Johnson, a Scotty Miller, a Brashad Perriman, Cyril Grayson, Jalen Darden, Vincent Smith, Devin Tompkins, Jarrett Stearns, Kalen Geiger, Cam Brown. You're going to have a lot of these guys to protect on the practice squad and hide, or you have some potential trade bait. My opinion personally is I would try trading a guy like either, a Grayson or Darden or Johnson instead of just losing him. I don't want to lose any of them, damn it, but the Lord knows there's so many teams that need a wide receiver. If one of those guys do become available, odds are they'd be scooped up. And we have a lot of good undrafted free agent wide receivers between Stearns, Tompkins, our guy Geiger, my favorite, and then you got Brown as well. So a lot of eyes to watch in the wide receiver room battle. Then you look at offensive line, left guard. It looks like it could be a plethora of guys right now. It's still a good competition. Aaron Stinney, Luke Godeke. You got some other guys competing over there. Brandon Walton is the other one. So just something to keep an eye on, something to monitor closely. But the Bucs do have a deep offensive line this year, and thank gosh we alluded to that throughout because the injuries are going to be piling up. And then running back room. You got 5 running backs. They're not going to carry all 5 of them. So Kenyon Barner's probably on the way out there. That's another roster borderline guy to watch. Then the kicking competition, you got Suck up against Borgalis. And right now, I think Borregales is leaning slightly over Suckup. But at the same time, I feel like the Bucs know what they have in Suckup. He has the edge right now in terms of starting on the depth chart. So if he doesn't screw up this offseason, he'll probably be the kicker. But one little mistake, any reason to move to Borregales, I think the Bucs will do that because they have a couple ex-young kickers around the league right now, Matt Gay in the Rams, Greg Joseph in Minnesota. So you never know if Borregales proves well, another team signs him, then you're missing out on him. And then the return game, it looks like it's between Devin Tompkins, Giovanni Bernard, and Darden. Darden's obviously going to get the first crack there. So that'll be interesting to see how that turns out, to see who wins and all those roster battles and whatnot. But it'll be interesting to see, and that all takes place this Sunday. A couple more practices with the Dolphins, and I'm sorry, not Sunday. I'm used to that. It's Saturday, August 13th, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central. Your Miami Dolphins are traveling to my Tampa Bay Buccaneers to take on Kyle Trask, Blaine Gabbert, and co. Tom Brady will not be playing in that game. But preseason is a lot of fun. This is where roster battles are made. This is where guys come in, they go, and you really learn the roster. Who's going to be a part of this Bucs team next year? You'll know a lot more after preseason week 1, 2, and 3. That's why I like him. I see people on Twitter, "Hey, you got to be dumb to spend money on the preseason." No, buddy. A, you look at the game, you learn a lot about it. B, it's a fun time. It's like a party. And C, it's a hell of a lot cheaper. So a lot of good reasons, actually, to go to preseason football. And keep on the lookout for a post-game show, either that Sunday or Monday, of the Bucs Dolphins preview. Stunna will be going to that game, so we'll have his insight, and we'll hopefully have a couple guests on and a couple members of the Buccateers to chat about that one as well. And then next week we'll have a Titans Bucs preview. Then the week after we will have Colts Bucs with special guest from Cleveland, me, Joey, joining the pod, the Colts brain. So we'll hopefully get a Titans guest, and then we're going to hopefully get a Dolphins one for the post-game show as well. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another up-to-the-minute Buckdate, proud Buccateers podcast covering the team, proud members of Bucs Life News, and so much more. This has been Tampa Tones. We're without our co-host today, but we always shout him out. Huncho, Bucko, Cody G, Kat, and Stunna. And you can follow us on Twitter at Buccateers. Follow us on YouTube at Buccateers Podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Buccateers Pod. And find us anywhere on Stitcher, Deezer, Apple, Spotify, and so much more. Anchor, etc., etc. This has been episode 77 of the Buccateers Podcast. Short and sweet and to the point. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to your top 6 source of Buccaneers news according to blog.feedspot.com. This is Tampa Tones from the Buccateers. Until next time. Game on Sunday, man. I know you're nervous for the Rams, but you got to be a little enthusiastic after being there.
Bro, that game atmosphere was ridiculous. The energy, the electricity. That place was rocking. Anyone was there, and a lot of the Super Buck fans were there too. The Bucs.
Tampa Tones. We are joined by Lead Goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron Show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is bumbling a little bit. Going to put him on mute for a second until that gets a little clear. But we're joined by Pat Donovan.
It looks like Stunna's hanging out with Cheech and Chong in a car with the windows up or something over there.
It does look like we got a little...
No, my camera's broke.